MAGA Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House, is panicking as members of his own party want him fired, and they want him fired now. They don't even want to wait until the midterms, but as these MAGA Republicans look toward the midterms, they're telling reporters that they want to lose. They don't want to be in the majority because being led by MAGA Mike Johnson and Donald Trump is so chaotic and is so harmful to them personally that they prefer to be in the minority because they simply can't lead. And the chaos that continues to unfold is just too much for them. And they're going to reporters on the Hill, these MAGA Republicans, and telling them that. So what is MAGA Mike Johnson doing in response? Well, he has now shut down the House of Representatives again. That's right. MAGA Mike Johnson has sent the House of Representatives into yet another recess, sending everybody on vacation back to their home districts through May 11th. This Congress does not work except to inflict pain on the American people. Let me just show you the moment on the House floor yesterday where MAGA Mike Johnson sends a note to the House clerk calling a recess and sending everybody home until May 11th. Let's play this clip.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., April 30th, 2026. I hereby designate the period from Thursday, April 30th, 2026 through Monday, May 11th, 2026 as a district work period under Clause 13 of Rule 1. Signed sincerely, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to Clause 13 of Rule 1, the House stands adjourned until 10:30 a.m. on Monday next.
Now, the latest report from Notice is called Mike Johnson's Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Week. And it talks about how these MAGA Republican Congress members who are part of MAGA Mike Johnson's party, they want him gone. They're done with this. This is what they're reporting. House Republicans are absolutely miserable, and they lay the blame at the feet of Speaker Mike Johnson. This chaos of a slim majority has some wishing for the minority. If we were to lose the majority now, it would be a blessing in disguise, one House Republican said of the party's dwindling ranks, with more members eyeing the exits each day, because maybe then Democrats would go off the rails and do something stupid, and maybe voters would actually give us another chance in November 2028. And a lot of the conference believes Johnson is leading them towards more chaos. This is what happens when you have a leadership who can't organize a one-car parade, one senior Republican told this media outlet called Notice. MAGA Republican Congressmember Chip Roy went on the record and said, right now, it is a shit show. And then another MAGA Republican Congress member said the following, we are F-U-C, you know what the word is, we are effed right now. So I want to show you the moment right before MAGA Mike Johnson sent the House of Representatives into recess, where MAGA Republican Congress member Chip Roy basically said, why are we going home? You want to send us into another vacation, and the Senate wants to go on vacation. And ultimately, we are screwing our constituents right now. And this MAGA Republican Congress member basically lays into MAGA Mike Johnson and the entire Congress being led by the MAGA Republicans, and basically says this Congress led by MAGA Mike Johnson is completely and utterly worthless. Here, play this clip.
The reason I asked for the gentleman to yield to me is precisely the response we just heard. You know what really the problem is? People want to get home to fundraisers. People want to get home to dinners. People want to go back to their districts and go on trips. They have Codels. Meanwhile, the American people are wondering what on earth is happening in this town.
The gentleman will suspend. House will be in order. Gentleman is recognized.
Thank the Speaker. The American people are wondering what on earth is happening when they look at this body and see what we failed to do. We're continuing every single day to drive this entire country into bankruptcy. $40 trillion, government spying on the people, failure to stop government spying on the people, kill switches in cars, failure to stop sugar drinks going to children on the SNAP program voted by both sides of the aisle. And we go home and the American people say, what are you doing? Well, here we sit. And the response here is, please let us get on our flights so we can go home. Be away for 10 days while this country suffers because this body doesn't do its job.
Now, if you think about what type of legislation was pushed through the House of Representatives just in the past 24 hours. So you know how MAGA Mike Johnson was refusing the Democrats' compromise, which would fund the Department of Homeland Security so long as ICE was not funded, but it would fund all of the other areas of the Department of Homeland Security. And MAGA Mike months ago said, we're never going to do that. We're never going to do that, even though the Senate reached a compromise where they were going to agree to fund DHS without ICE. Well, MAGA Mike Johnson, right before sending Congress into vacation, was like, yeah, we'll fund DHS now. We'll fund the Department of Homeland Security, and we won't deal with ICE now. We'll deal with ICE later, maybe in a reconciliation process. So why did you shut down the DHS if you were ultimately going to just pass it, which the Democrats reached a compromise with the Senate a long time ago? Also, MAGA Mike pushed through the warrantless FISA 702 reauthorization, which Donald Trump had basically campaigned that he was against and that he wanted warrants. So this was yet another betrayal of the MAGA base. And the way MAGA Mike Johnson was able to convince MAGA Republicans in the House in order to pass FISA Section 702 without a warrant requirement was basically to trick them. And MAGA Mike's like, well, I'm actually going to support a central bill that bans central bank digital currency, which was a big issue if you support my warrantless FISA 702. And so he got some support from MAGA Republicans. Then he said, yeah, actually, we're not going to ban the central bank digital currency. So all these MAGA Republicans were like, you just screwed us. We just agreed to this because you made a deal with us. Now you withdrew the deal after you said you were going to make the deal. So people were livid with him at that. And then MAGA Mike, tried to push through this very deeply unpopular farm bill, and contained in this farm bill at first was a special provision that promoted certain herbicides and pesticides and gave blanket immunity, for example, to glyphosate. And so then MAGA Republican Congress members like Anna Paulina Luna and Thomas Massie, frankly, joined by Democrats when it came to this, had to basically support amendments that would basically ban Donald Trump and MAGA from giving immunity to the big agriculture makers of these herbicides and pesticides like glyphosate, which have been demonstrated to be carcinogens. And so then all of these other Republicans were forced to take votes kind of supporting glyphosate. And ultimately, the immunity provision was stripped from the bill, but it exposed so many Republicans as being in the pocket of pro-glyphosate, pro-cancer. And so they were pissed at MAGA Mike for exposing them to that right there. And let me just share with you this moment before the House went into recess as well, where you had Democratic Congress member Joe Neguse cross-examining a MAGA Republican Congress member who was championing the pro-glyphosate position. Here, play this clip.
You're aware that a couple of years ago, Bayer removed glyphosate from residential products. You familiar with that?
Yes.
Why?
I guess there were questions.
If it's so safe, why'd they do that?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I will tell you it created a real challenge for
There are
our
Republicans who oppose this
to be able
provision.
to have
There are
full
Democrats who
affordability.
oppose this provision. I am one of them, and I hope that enough Republican members of the U.S. House tomorrow decide in advance of the procedural vote that this amendment is worth fighting for and they ultimately ensure that we get an up or down vote.
And then the folks over at TMZ caught up with MAGA Republican Congressmember Dan Mauser right as Congress was going into this vacation and recess. And this dude was clearly triggered. Here, play this clip right here.
Look, you guys have the majority, though. You guys have the majority, and you're probably going to go home without passing DHS.
We have a majority. We have a 2-vote majority, so that means we need 100%. And as well, you need 60 votes over there. You know that. Stop trying to kick things up that aren't working.
No, I'm just saying because I'm frustrated, and a lot of Americans are frustrated that you guys are probably going to go home on another break before passing this DHS bill.
We're going to do our best to pass it. And
it's the best, though. You know, like, I'm trying to be respectful,
and it's
but
not a break. You're not being respectful.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, don't talk to me anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean that. I'm just frustrated that, you know, these TSA will go without pay.
I'm frustrated, but you don't know what you're talking about, okay? Because when you go home, it's not, first of all, we have conference calls, we do other things, and we work for our constituents. We got a lot of work to do at home as well.
We just want you to pass, like, this legislation, like if TSA and other people are going without pay, and I get that you guys are going home
to the fucking Democrats.
Thank you, sir.
What about MAGA Mike? What was MAGA Mike saying as he called this recess? It was actually quite pathetic. MAGA Mike is saying that the MAGA Republicans are the grown-ups in charge. Here, play this clip.
House Republicans continue to deliver for the American people. We will continue to do that for the remainder of the year, and that is a large reason why we are going to win the midterms so that the grown-ups can stay in charge here. Take a few questions.
MAGA Mike Johnson is also saying that we deliver for the American people, these MAGA Republicans. We're the ones who actually deliver. Again, just kind of utterly pathetic. Let's play this clip.
Don't doubt the House Republican majority. We always deliver for the American people. We did it again, in spite of the challenges, and we continue to do that.
This is the third shutdown in 6 months.
And so now let me bring you as well to the House floor, where Democratic Congressmember McGovern, right before the recess was called, talked about the disastrous farm bill that MAGA Republicans in the House were pushing through. Let's play this clip.
You guys are bringing this farm bill to the floor 3 years late, in the middle of the night. It's prime time in Guam, for God's sake. Republicans spent the whole day fighting with each other. You know what most Americans spent doing today? Working. Going to school, taking care of their kids, living their lives, wondering, praying if this institution might give a damn about their hopes and dreams, their concerns and fears. And what Republicans have shown time and time again is that they don't care. If they did, they would not be bringing this farm bill to the floor, because this bill makes hunger worse. It means more kids go to bed without food. More seniors end up in the ER after taking pills on an empty stomach. More parents put groceries back on the shelf. Hunger is a political condition. It's the result of decisions made in this chamber. Republicans decided in their big ugly bill to make hunger worse. And with this farm bill, they are deciding to keep it worse by locking in massive cuts to food assistance. 48 million people in this country cannot afford food. And as a congressman and as an American, I'm ashamed of that. And I'm ashamed that in a nation as rich and powerful as ours, the people in charge of this town don't seem to give a damn.
Folks, and even on state regime media, their guests were calling out with Donald Trump and MAGA Mike Johnson and, all of the stuff that was going on. Let me show you this clip right here. Let's play it.
I honestly don't agree with Matthew. I don't think that we sadly are holding all the cards, and that doesn't make me anti-American. It certainly doesn't make me in favor of Iran, the Iranian regime, which is really the same regime as we had before. If you open any portion of a blockade, you no longer have a blockade. If you listened to Senator Lindsey Graham earlier this morning, I thought it sounded ridiculous. But in addition to that, what we have is not just the American people, who I think polls show across the board like now a -15 if you take all of the averages of these polls in support for this, but you have cracks in the Republican support for this, and that is going to be even more evident when they get back after the session, after this week, when you need congressional approval. I don't care what Pete Hegseth says. The War Powers Resolution Act is very, very clear, and this ceasefire does not extend that. So I think what has to be done here is it has to go back to what a lot of people have been saying, our allies have been saying, which is you got to sit down and you got to have more diplomacy. The American people aren't buying this. Our allies aren't buying this. We are alone. The American people don't have affordability, not just at the gas pump, but at the grocery store. This is not sustainable, and not just for Iran and the Iranian people.
So now what the MAGA Republicans are doing during this recess, and I think this is one of the reasons MAGA Mike kind of in this panic called this recess, was that now the MAGA Republicans want to figure out, are there any more states where they can gerrymander and try to rig maps in order to try to pick up House seats during the midterms by rigging the electoral maps. And so you had the MAGA Republicans running to Ron DeSantis to gerrymander the maps in Florida. And here's what Ron DeSantis had to say. And he used this voice to mock Hakeem Jeffries. It was quite weird. Here, play this clip.
We're going to do maximum warfare against Republicans. Florida Republicans, you F around, you're going to find out all this stuff. And, you know, what I said was, listen, and he's like, oh, if you do the redistricting, we're going to take out all your members. We're going to do all this stuff. And what I said was, go ahead, make my day. You don't think we're going to, you want to come down here and spend money and in Florida, roll the dice and take your chances. But don't think that you can come down here, issue threats to us, and somehow you're going to make us flinch. That is not happening. And in fact, it did not happen, because as soon as he came out and started doing that last week, Florida legislature turned around and they passed a new map.
Finally, Anna Paulina Luna, MAGA Republican Congress member, writes, I'm hearing that some members are upset about the blowback they're receiving from their constituents for voting against the amendment to remove pesticide liability protections. I have absolutely nothing to do with that. I don't control activists, influencers, outside groups, or anyone else, and it's a pretty big cop-out to suggest otherwise. Newsflash. People are genuinely upset that this provision was added to the Farm Bill and that it would have given liability protection to pesticide companies. You know, finally, MAGA Republicans are also disenchanted at the way MAGA Mike Johnson has handled the Epstein files, obviously, and that he's botched the cover-up. That he and Comer and Trump and Bondi and all of them have botched the cover-up. And so you'll recall that Pam Bondi dodged the subpoena for her to appear at a deposition several weeks back, and then Democrats continued to call her out, and now her deposition is scheduled for May 29th. And that wasn't going away. And so, if anything, Americans have been more focused once again on the Epstein files, as MAGA Mike has completely botched the cover-up. And now Bondi's not only going to testify, but everyone's now saying, look, these MAGA Republicans are clearly complicit in covering it up. We knew that before, but obviously if they were trying to prevent Bondi from testifying, what else are these MAGA Republicans hiding? So now other MAGA Republicans are like, y'all are handling this just the worst, and they want him gone. Anyway, let me know what you think, everybody. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers, and thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.